Please, he shouted as a paper swallow went for his eyes and 2 paper swans bit his feet. He kicked and swatted, but they kept coming. You seem like a nice boy, the mother said. Choose a different profession. That's my advice. She crawled back into bed. Antane pounded on the door again. Again, his pounding was silent. The birds squawked and keened and screeched. They sharpened their paper wings with knives. They massed in great murmurations, swelling and contracting and swelling again. They reared up for the attack. Antane covered his face with his hands, and then they were upon him. Chapter 14, in which there are consequences. When Luna woke, she felt different. She didn't know why. She lay in her bed for a long time, listening to the singing of the birds. She didn't understand a thing they were saying. She shook her head. Why would she understand them in the first place? They were only birds. She pressed her hands to her face. She listened to the birds again. No one can talk to birds, she said out loud. And it was true. So why did she feel like it wasn't? A brightly colored finch landed on the windowsill and sang so sweetly, Luna thought her heart would break. Indeed, it was breaking a little, even now. She brought her hands to her eyes and realized that she was crying, though she had no idea why. Silly, she said out loud, noticing a little waver and rattle in her voice. Silly Luna. She was the silliest girl. Everyone said so. She looked around. Firion was curled up at the foot of her bed. That was regular. He loved sleeping on her bed, though her grandmother often forbade it. Luna never knew why. At least she thought she didn't know why, but it felt deep inside herself that maybe once upon a time she did, but she couldn't remember when. Her grandmother was asleep in her own bed on the other side of the room, and her swamp monster was sprawled out on the floor, snoring prodigiously. That is strange, Luna thought. She couldn't remember a single other time when Glurk had slept on the floor, or inside, or unsubmerged in the swamp. Luna shook her head. She squinched up her shoulders to her ears, first one side and then the other. The world pressed on her, strangely, like a coat that no longer fit. Also, she had a terrible pain in her head, deep inside. She hit her forehead a few times with the heel of her hand, but it didn't help. Luna slid out of bed and slid out of her nightgown and slipped on a dress with deep pockets sewn all over, because it is how she asked her grandmother to make it. She gently laid the sleeping Firion into one of the pockets, careful not to wake him up. Her bed was attached to the ceiling with ropes and pulleys to make room in the small house during the day, but Luna was still too small to be able to hoist it on her own. She left it as it was and went outside. It was early, and the morning sun had not yet made it over the lip of the ridge. The mountain was cool and damp and alive. 3 of the volcanic craters had thin ribbons of smoke lazily curling from their insides and meandering toward the sky. Luna walked slowly toward the edge of the swamp. She looked down at her bare feet, sinking slightly into the mossy ground, leaving footsteps. No flowers grew out of the places where she stepped. But that was a silly thing to think, wasn't it? Why would something grow out of her footsteps? Silly, silly, she said out loud, and then she felt her head go fuzzy. She sat down on the ground and stared at the ridge, thinking nothing at all. Zan found Luna sitting by herself outside, staring at the sky, which was odd. Normally the girl woke in a whirlwind, rousting awake all who were near. Not so today. Well, Zan thought, everything's different now. She shook her head. Not everything, she decided. Despite the bound-up magic curled inside her, safe and sound for now, she was still the same girl. She was still Luna. They simply didn't have to worry about her magic erupting all over the place. Now she could learn in peace, and today they were going to get started. Good morning, Precious, Zan said, letting her hand slide along the curve of the girl's skull, winding her fingers in the long black curls. Luna didn't say anything. She seemed to be in a bit of a trance. Zan tried not to worry about it. Good morning, Auntie Zan, Firion said, peeking out from the pocket and yawning, stretching his small arms out as wide as they would go. He looked around, squinting. Why am I outside? Luna returned to the world with a start. She looked at her grandmother and smiled. Grandmama, she said, scrambling to her feet. I feel like I haven't seen you for days and days. Well, that's because, Firion began, but Zan interrupted. Hush, child, she said. But Auntie Zan, Firion continued excitedly, I just wanted to explain that. Enough prattling, you silly dragon. Off with you. Go find your monster. Zan pulled Luna to her feet and hurried her away. But where are we going, Grandmama? Luna asked. To the workshop, darling, Zan said, shooting Firion a sharp look. Go help Glurk with breakfast. Okay, Auntie Zan. I just want to tell Luna this one. Now, Firion, she snapped, and she ushered Luna quickly away. Luna loved her grandmother's workshop and had already been taught the basics of mechanics, levers and wedges and pulleys and gears. Even at that young age, Luna possessed a mechanical mind and was able to construct little machines that whirred and ticked. She loved finding bits of wood that she could smooth and connect and fashion into something else. For now, Zan had pushed all of Luna's projects into a corner and divided the whole workshop into sections, each with its own set of bookshelves and tool shelves and material shelves. There was a section for inventing and a section for building and one for scientific study and one for botany and one for the study of magic. On the floor, she had made numerous chalk drawings. "What happened here, Grandmama?" Luna asked. "Nothing, dear," Zan said. But then she thought better of it. "Well, actually many things, but there are more important items to attend to first." She sat down on the floor across from the girl and gathered her magic into her hand, letting it float just above her fingers like a bright, shining ball. "You see, dearest," she explained, "the magic flows through me, from earth to sky, but it collects in me as well, inside me, like static electricity. It crackles and hums in my bones. When I need a little extra light, I rub my hands together like so and let the light spin between my palms until it is enough to float wherever I need it to float. You've seen me do this before, hundreds of times, but I've never explained it. Isn't it pretty, my darling?" But Luna did not see. Her eyes were blank. Her face was blank. She looked as though her soul had gone dormant, like a tree in winter. Zan gasped. "Luna," she said, "are you well? Are you hungry? Luna." There was nothing. Blank eyes, blank face, a Luna-shaped hole in the universe. Zan felt a rush of panic bloom in her chest. And, as though the blankness had never happened at all, the light returned to the child's eyes. "Grandmama, may I have something sweet?" she said. "What?" Zan said, her panic increasing in spite of the light's return to the child's eyes. She looked closer. Luna shook her head as though to dislodge water from her ears. "Sweet," she said slowly. "I would like something sweet." She crinkled her eyebrows together. "Please," she added, and the witch obliged, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a handful of dried berries. The child chewed them thoughtfully. She looked around. "Why are we here, Grandmama?" "We've been here this whole time," Zan said. She searched the child's face with her eyes. What was going on? "But why, though?" Luna looked around. "Weren't we just outside?" She pressed her lips together. She began, trailing off. "I don't remember." "I wanted to give you the first lesson, darling." A cloud passed over Luna's face, and Zan paused. She put her hand on the girl's cheek. The waves of magic were gone. If she concentrated very hard, she could feel the gravitational pull of that dense nugget of power, smooth and dark and sealed off like a nut, or an egg. She decided to try again. "Luna, my love, do you know what magic is?" And once again, Luna's eyes went blank. She didn't move. She barely breathed. It was as if the stuff of Luna, light, motion, intelligence, had simply vanished. Zan waited again. This time it took even longer for the light to return and for Luna to regain herself. The girl looked at her grandmother with a curious expression. She looked to her right, and she looked to her left. She frowned. "When did we get here, Grandmama?" she asked. "Did I fall asleep?" Zan pulled herself to her feet and started pacing the room. She paused at the invention table, surveying its gears and wires and wood and glass and books with intricate diagrams and instructions. She picked up a small gear in one hand and a small spring, so sharp at the ends it made a point of blood bloom on her thumb, in the other. She looked back at Luna and pictured the mechanism inside that girl, rhythmically ticking its way toward her 13th birthday, as even and inexorable as a well-tuned clock. Or at least that was how the spell was supposed to work. Nothing in Zan's construction of the spell had indicated this kind of blankness. Had she done it wrong? She decided to try another tactic. "Grandmama, what are you doing?" Luna asked. "Nothing, darling," Zan said as she bustled over to the magic table and assembled a scrying glass. Wood from the earth, glass made from a melted meteorite, a splash of water, and a single hole in the center to let the air in. It was one of her better efforts. Luna didn't seem to even see it. Her gaze slid from one side to the other. Zan set it up between them and looked at the girl through the gap. "I would like to tell you a story, Luna," the old woman said. "I love stories," Luna smiled. "Once upon a time, there was a witch who found a baby in the woods," Zan said. Through the scrying glass, she watched her dusty words fly into the ears of the child. She watched the words separate inside the skull. Baby lingered and flitted from the memory centers to the imaginative structures to the places where the brain enjoys playing with pleasing-sounding words. Baby, baby, baby. Over and over and over again. Luna's eyes began to darken. "Once upon a time," Zan said, "when you were very, very small, I took you outside to see the stars." "We always go outside to see the stars," Luna said, "every night." Yes, Zan said. "Pay attention. One night, long ago, as we looked at the stars, I gathered starlight on my fingertips and fed it to you like honey from the comb." And Luna's eyes went blank. She shook her head as though clearing away cobwebs. "Honey," she said slowly, as though the word itself was a great burden. Zan was undeterred. "And then," she pressed, "one night Grandmama did not notice the rising moon hanging low and fat in the sky." and she reached up to gather starlight and gave you moonlight by mistake.